Bruins Beat is brought to you by PrizePicks and the GameTime app.
And welcome into the Bruins Beat, presented by PrizePicks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $50 back when you play just $5, and are presented by GameTime. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $20 off that first purchase. Terms apply. I'm Evan Marinofsky. That's Mark Divver. Divs, what's up?
Hey, Evan. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. And you're a little sick, aren't you?
Yes. I'm under the weather. Yes.
That's why I said to you when we came on, I said, I'm unhappy that you're sick, but I'm happy at least that you're comfy. So it's like,
right.
You can chill and relax, and I'll put you to sleep.
Just raise your voice a little bit if I nod off here. this thing.
We start getting into the monotony of things we've talked about all year, and you're just out cold. I'll be asleep. I'll probably be asleep just as much. Well, I will say this. That third period was exciting last night, but you could fall asleep when you think about how we've seen that game 100 times this year. Bruins lose at MSG to the Rangers, who are horrific. I didn't realize this until I looked at the standings on like Wednesday or Thursday, but they're in line for like the 4th or 5th overall pick, which is bananas.
It's mind-boggling how fast it's gone south for them. And, Peter Laviolette is a fabulous coach,
I know.
And, it's hard to put your finger on exactly one thing there, and I don't think it is one thing. I think the Trouba thing started it, and then, the GM comes out and says he's shopping guys and underachieving players, that you expected big things from. Then they throw a massive contract at Shesterkin. It's been a roller coaster. It's just crazy. But yeah, they're bad. And it's, we were joking last night, like, yeah, they're bad, but the Bruins kind of, came to town and fixed them, and that's one way of looking at it. But the thing about that game last night, and we've talked about this throughout the year so far, is the Bruins are boring. They're boring.
I know.
It's
the worst thing you can be, by the way. Like the Sharks stink, but they're not boring. You know what I mean?
In fact, there's some hope now for the Sharks. They're worth tuning in to see. Okay, how's Celebrini look tonight? Has he got it going tonight? What's Will Smith up to? They got some guys, you can kind of hang your hat on. Last night, honestly, by the third period, I was more interested in the Canada-Czech game at the World Juniors than I was in the Bruins. So that's not a good thing, from a Bruins perspective.
Well, it's like if I was sick like you when I was in that third period, I'd be asleep. I would be out on the couch, man. I'd be done. And I think that's what people are. I think that's what's so tough with this team is, and we'll get into sort of the young guys that need to come up, whether or not they should come up. The watchability with this team is low. There's not a lot of storylines with this team that you're hoping. And I guess if they went on a streak, that would be one thing. But I just don't see it with them going on a 5 or 6 game win streak where it's like, oh, they're challenging for the second spot in the Atlantic or the top spot in the Atlantic. It's just they're sort of in the middle of the pack and they're unwatchable at times. And even, Thursday's game, they have a million chances. Yes, Jonathan Quick made a bunch of ridiculous Jonathan Quick-esque saves, from when he was taking the Kings on those Stanley Cup runs. But even then, the lack of finish, and even in the last 5 minutes, they couldn't really get any sustained zone time. And it's just, they're getting zone time throughout the period, but they're not getting to the high danger areas. And they're just not that great. And that's why, Connor and I talked yesterday on Poke the Bear about, have you changed your outlook for this team, going into 2025? Do you think differently about them? And I'm like, not really. Like, I don't see it, they could turn it around. Like teams, the 2019 Blues were in a way worse position. They were more like the Rangers. They turned it around. Like, it can be done. But I don't have a lot of faith that this team is going to be the one that flips the switch and, powers through the last couple months of the year.
Yeah, I don't either. The talent deficit, I keep coming back to that. the skill deficit compared to other teams. It's too great. It's too much. They hard work will only take you so far. And this team, most nights the Bruins work their butts off. And sometimes it's good enough, and sometimes, other times it isn't, because when you're up against teams that have more skill and more finish, and your main thing is, geez, they work really hard. Well, that's it's hard to see, a path forward that's really ends in something rewarding in that. And I think that's where Boston is right now.
Yeah, and I the talent deficit thing is correct. I mean, you look at that roster, and it hasn't. I still think they can be better, but even then, I mean, Geeky has been better. There've been guys that Lindholm has been better the last month, and you're still losing 2-1 to the Rangers, and you're still losing 6-2 in Columbus to Columbus, and those are still happening. And yes, you're better. They're a bet. They're better than they were the first 2 months. They've been better under Sacco for sure. But do I see them turning it around and winning a round or two in the playoffs? I have a tough time imagining this team winning, 4 times in 7 games against a team that's better than them. I just don't. Why would we think they could do that? And I think Thursday's a great example of why. I love Jonathan Quick. I think he's fantastic. He's an amazing career Hall of Famer. And props to him for revitalizing his career with the Rangers, because he was sort of
he was like he was done.
Yeah.
He was done,
Done. And the last 2 years has been really good with New York, but you can't put up more than one. You can't finish a Beecher by the side of the net. You've got McAvoy on that one time. You can't. I think that's sort of emblematic of them. Yes, Quick made great saves, but they don't have guys that can actually finish outside of Pastrnak. And he hasn't even really been finishing that much. He's been the one setting up all the plays.
Right. If you're keeping Pastrnak and Marchand off the board, then then you're probably going to beat the Bruins. It's pretty simple. And their power play, let's face it, it's bad. And I don't know how many times you can shuffle the deck and expect it to be better, or to change it. We're halfway through here almost, and it's kind of at the point, I guess, where, I don't know, it seems like it is what it is. And I don't know if there's a move out there to change it. I really don't, or to shake things up, or whether, a move of some kind. It doesn't have to necessarily be a big move. Why not try that? They brought in Wallstrom. That's a move in a way, but it's not
a move. Yes, it has been. It definitely was a move.
It's not a
hasn't worked out so far, but yes,
it's not. It feels like it's not giving anyone in that room that's maybe comfortable a kick in the butt, and an idea that, hey, you know what, I better get going, or I could be on the way out. So I don't know. It's been, and we're talking here, and they're actually had a pretty good stretch of games here recently. Record wise, not last night notwithstanding, they've won more than they've lost recently. But the path forward here to a place where they're in a more comfortable position now than they are now, where they're hanging on, to a playoff spot. I don't know. I'm not optimistic about the rest of the year.
I don't know how you can be, but I still find it fascinating. So they're 2 points ahead of Tampa, although Tampa has 5 games in hand. They're only 4 points back of the Panthers, and they're 6 back of Toronto, which isn't insane. That they could make that up, but I just don't.
Yes, they could.
And I think the other thing is, you mentioned the lack of talent, and I think Sacco's gotten a lot out of this group. They've been much better since Sacco took over. I don't think there's any doubt about that. It's just what that next level, that getting into the Toronto and the Florida, that realm of teams, I just don't see them doing. And you hit on the power play, and that has been, I think, the worst sin of all, among others. Jeremy Swayman playing the puck. Like, dude, please just, hand it off to a defenseman nearby. Just let it be. But the power play, I mean, I was talking to Connor about this on Poke the Bear yesterday. And to me, like, Lindholm has certainly struggled on the power play for sure. But like, those probably are your 5 guys on that top unit: McAvoy, Marchand, Pastrnak, Zacha, and Lindholm that you'd put out there. To me, I think like you do drastic change, move Pastrnak off the one-timer spot, like get him in the bumper or make him facilitate at the point. Like, and I don't know if he's going to want to do that. That's the thing, right? Like, and even at 5-on-5, they try to force feed him one-timers in the zone. Like, to me, like, get him away from that area, open things up. You want to put McAvoy in the one-timer spot. You want to try Lindholm there. Like, you can try things. Your power play stinks. It's not like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's broke. It needs to be fixed. To me, the move is putting guys in different spots, I think. Yeah, change it up. You're absolutely right. Try something different. What they've been doing hasn't been working. So what's the harm in mixing it up a little and trying something different, a little bit different scheme, maybe, whatever, just anything to create a spark at this point. It's true. Anything at this point. And you want to talk about sparks, you want to talk about good things, talk about our good friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks, the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. And again, with it being the last couple weeks of football, hard to get in on the Pats. Hard to, want to really do that. But if you want to get into other games, you want to pick your team for the playoffs, the Lions, the Bills, the Steelers, maybe. I don't know who you're going to pick. But PrizePicks is the perfect place to go do it and make the games more interesting and more fun. And PrizePicks also offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. So, the young guys. It feels like the game against the game against the Rangers, a lot of people are clamoring for this. We've been talking about it for weeks. Matt Poitras dominated in Providence. Merkulov's been really good. Lysell did come up here for a game up to Boston. That third line here in Boston just ain't cutting it. Fred, whatever grouping it is. I saw Ty Anderson tweeted, unless Brazeau is can smell the goalie's breath or something, like unless it's in front of the net, that line isn't really doing much. To me, it feels like your first move maybe is internal. You know this better than anybody. The 3 guys I mentioned, Poitras, Merkulov, Lysell, are they ready to be called up? Should they be called up? Sort of what's your take on that? I don't think it would hurt anything to give them a look. Maybe not all 3 at the same time, but of course, maybe one at a time. What have you got to lose? I think on a night in, night out basis, you very well could get more out of one of those guys offensively than whoever he replaces in the lineup. You'd have to look the other way on some parts of the game. They'd be rookies and relatively inexperienced. So you'd have to live with some of the mistakes. But I mean, you're living with mistakes now from younger players in Boston, and that's part of the process, part of the growth when you bring young guys up. So I guess I would start with Poitras. He's playing very well down here. I've said this before, but his first stretch of games here were not particularly impressive. But the last few, what's he played? 20 now almost. Played a while down there.
Yeah, it's been a while. And I mean, he's been night in and night out. He's been very good doing all the things, as far as a 200-foot game from a young centerman, all the things you want to see. And things maybe you weren't seeing at the NHL level because, maybe the size and speed of the game up there was a little bit overwhelming at times for him. But I think in the American League, he's had a chance to kind of catch his breath and learn, some things about the 200-foot game that should help him when he goes up. So, I mean, would I bring him up like for Toronto tomorrow night? No, I wouldn't do that. But some other softer opponent, maybe under less pressure than Maple Leaf Gardens on a Saturday. Do they still call it Maple Leaf Gardens? They probably don't.
It used to be Air Canada Center. I don't know what it is now. Is it still Air Canada Center?
It'll always be Maple Leaf Gardens to me, but that venue,
Scotiabank Arena. Scotiabank Arena. That's what it is now.
A night against somebody else, so where the whole spotlight isn't on the kid. That would be a better venue. I thought Lysell, calling him up for a game against Columbus one night after he'd had his probably his best game of the season in Providence, that was the perfect way to handle that. I thought it gave him a chance to kind of get his feet wet. It wasn't much. It was one game, didn't play all that much, but he kind of dipped his toes in. I think he'll get another shot at some point. And Merkulov is kind of in the same boat. What's he played? 3 games in Boston this year? 3-4 games?
I believe so. Yep.
So, I mean,
small sample.
He deserves another look. If only to find out about these guys. If you watch them in the NHL and you conclude that 1 or 2 or, they're not going to make it, then okay, you can take that information and go forward with it, at least knowing that you took a look and go from there. So I think, working any or all of those guys in at some point would be a good plan.
Yeah,
maybe,
and I think
maybe that is the plan. We don't, they're not big on revealing what the inner workings or the inner thoughts. But I think certainly we'll see Poitras at some point. I don't think the plan is to keep him in the American League the rest of the year. That's not going to help. The big club, but give these guys a chance at some point.
Yeah, I think Poitras obviously proven he can play in the NHL, which is, I think, a good thing for them that they have that as a baseline where it's like, all right, at the very least, he can contribute on a third or maybe a second line in the NHL. We'll see what he has, sort of going forward. But I look at all 3 of those guys. I think they all have kind of higher offensive ceilings than some of the guys they have at the NHL level. Not to say that they're going to hit them, not to say that it's guaranteed that they produce when they come up here. But even when Merkulov was up here for a bit, just the way he goes about the offensive zone, little things like that, it's like, oh, it's a little different. They don't really have a lot of that up here. And it's that kind of that high end touch that you don't see out of guys like Geeky or Frederick or some of those guys. And so I think it's interesting. I want to continue this conversation with about the younger guys, because I think that's what people care about the most. If you want to go see these guys in action, you got to go to our friends over at GameTime. Now, the NFL playoffs are arriving. Patriots obviously will not be in them, but if you want to maybe make a trip, want to go see a game, GameTime is the place to go do it. Playoff games are awesome. Incredible memories you make. I'd also say the memories you make around here for NHL or NBA games are tough to beat. We're getting to that dog days of winter. So the games aren't as big. There aren't as many championship games on TV outside of the Bean Pot. So make the games more exciting. Go. It's fun. Get a beer, some popcorn, a hot dog, and go through our friends over at GameTime. GameTime has that new feature I love talking about called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. I love flash deals. I live kind of close to TD Garden. I live close to Fenway. So if I want to go to the game at night, I just go use flash deals at GameTime. I know I am getting the cheapest price, and it's all in pricing. So I know that I'm not that I'm not going to be crushed when I go to enter my credit card information when there's a ton of extra fees, because GameTime doesn't have that. They give you the price from the start, which is awesome, and they give you seat views so you know where you'll be sitting. So download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase so you can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. What time is it? It's game time. That's what time it is. It is game time. And the question is it game time for Matt Poitras, Lysell, and Merkulov? I think it's tough because this team is weird. You think about the spot that the head coach is in with Joe Sacco, where you're trying to earn the full-time job going forward as the head coach. And you look at Sweeney. And Don Sweeney, we've always said this forever, like GMs aren't going to get fired until they miss the playoffs. And if they start missing the playoffs, that's when the GM feels it. And so you damn well wants to make the playoffs. And I think the right move is you call those three kids up at different times and see what they can inject into your lineup. I think Poitras comes up first, then you do Merkulov, and then you can sort of see where you got with Lysell. But I wonder if they're a little too focused on playing mistake-free hockey. So yes, you lose against the Rangers 2-1, but you eke out a 2-1 win somewhere else playing good structured hockey and things like that. And I don't love that focus because I think it's a little too short-term focused, a little too narrow. And I also think what they're doing with Lowry is kind of right. Like, he does make mistakes. There are clear mistakes that Lowry makes. But I think they're understanding, hey, to develop him into the guy we think he can be at the NHL level, we've got to kind of put up with that. Yes, we can sit him for certain games. We can healthy scratch him, all that stuff, bench him at different points. But keeping him up here to see what he can kind of do. And I get why they put Poitras down in Providence. I get it. But I do think this team sort of needs a guy like him and potentially could use a Merkulov or a Lysell. And I just wonder if their focus is sort of in the wrong areas. About let's just make the playoffs and with a mistake-free, a more mistake-free roster.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to put young players, rookies in the lineup and expect mistake-free hockey. That's the
problem.
That's the issue. That's quite an ask, So if you go that route and bring those guys up and take a look, hey, you got to be ready to live with what happens. I mean, one thing about Lowry, I mean, he's been making mistakes. The way he plays the game he's never going to play a mistake-free game. That's not how he goes at it. But the thing he has in his corner is he's out there trying to make a difference on every shift, and at times he shouldn't be trying to make a difference. The game management stuff is bitten him at times, but he's trying things, and he's not just going off the glass and out and dumping the puck. He's trying to make plays, and if you're going to use a player like him to his greatest advantage, then let him do it, and when he makes a mistake, okay, put him back out there again and go at it again. You're just going to have to live with it, and I'd expect the same with the three youngsters we're talking about. That there's going to be a time where Poitras is going to be physically overwhelmed because he's just a young kid. He's not doesn't quite have the man strength yet. So you just have to live with that, and maybe look at what he does well rather than what he doesn't do well, and maybe that's I don't know if that's not a shortcoming that's particular to the Bruins. I think there's a lot of that in hockey in general. Looking at what guys don't do well, like, oh, he doesn't skate well enough, he doesn't do this, instead of focusing on what he does do, which is the things you want to see.
We talk about that a lot.
Yeah, yes, we do.
a lot.
We do. Yes, we do.
And I think that's sort of my thing is like, this seems like the perfect season to opt to say, all right, Matt Poitras going to make some mistakes. Georgi Merkulov might miss a back check or two. Fabian Lysell, okay, let's see what we got. Let's just use, and I'm not saying I'm not saying miss the playoffs, but I just think what they could give you is something you don't have. So what they could give instead of focusing on what they can't. And I think this is the year to try it. And if you miss the playoffs, okay. Like by the way, if those three are so bad that they're the reason you're missing the playoffs, you got bigger problems. You've got bigger problems if those three are somehow. I mean, I don't think all three of them are going to be in the lineup at the same time. But like, if bringing Matt Poitras up somehow makes you miss the playoffs, you got big old problems. But I don't think that's going to be the case. Maybe there's let's say you bring up Georgi Merkulov, and you've watched him a hell of a lot more than I have, so you can weigh in on this better than I can. But goal goes in when he's out there, whatever. All right. Maybe he didn't get back, missed his coverage in front of the net or, in the high slot, whatever. But he, in theory, should at some point make up for that in the offensive zone. Maybe it isn't a goal. Maybe it's a long sequence where you're getting multiple chances and you're swinging momentum into your favor or whatever it is. And I just, those guys, and I also think Poitras, maybe I'm expecting too much, but I wonder if he could ever work between Zacha and Pastrnak. I wonder if that's an option too. We always talk about putting him on the third line. Do you have a ton of what's the word? Faith that he's going to work with a guy like Frederick or Geeky or whatever. Maybe you try him on the top line. I don't know. I think you're at that point.
I think you are at that point. If you put him with, offensive player. He's an offensive player, I think. A two-way player, but with a real good offensive game. If you put him with offensive guys, I think that's more likely to bring out his strengths than if you put him with, guys that are, he back checks really hard, or guys like that with low expectations. I'd opt for putting him with the offensive guys myself. And as far as the power play, I think Merkulov on the power play. Now there's an area where maybe, just maybe, he can give you something. I'm not saying they're going to start filling the net with pucks because of him, but a different perspective, a different look, a different way of looking at the game, offensively. He might be able to provide a spark there. So why not give that a try?
I agree. And it's worth more than a one-game look. That's the other thing.
Yes.
You've got to have a little bit of patience. And again, I think it's tough because your two biggest decision makers are in such weird situations. And not so much Sweeney, but Sacco. Guy wants to be the head coach here full time going forward. And so again, wants to win, wants to get them in the playoffs. That's what matters up in Buffalo. And I think it's a tough sell for any head coach, but especially one whose sort of future is in limbo. And we talked about this with Montgomery too, where it was guy hasn't signed the dotted line for an extension. He wants to win. And he wants to, play as mistake-free hockey as you can. And that's where the veteran guys come into play. It's not so much, getting young guys integrated. So it'll be interesting to see when they make these moves. Because I think it's not a matter of if, it's more a matter of when. What do you have coming up, Mark, that people can look forward to?
I don't have anything that comes to mind right this minute that I'm working on. I've just been watching games and, gathering string, as they say, and, hopefully, something will jump out.
Getting over this cold.
I'm looking forward to the bean pot. I'm looking forward to the college game kind of getting back in swing here after the holidays. It's always fun to see who starts the second half strong, who fades. So stuff like that. That's what I'm looking at.
It'll be fun. That's been this week's Bruins Beat. I'm Evan Marinofsky, Bruins Beat listeners. Have a great rest of your week.